I do have one other question. You were talking before about in this state, well, we're not in California anymore, but in the state of California, everyone has to have health insurance. Well, in the state of California now, I have always believed happy, healthy, happy, healthy. So I didn't immunize my children, who are now 36 and 32. And our daughter just gave us our first grandbaby 5 weeks ago. And the state of California has now passed a law mandating everyone, no religious exceptions, spiritual exceptions allowed. You must immunize your baby with all of these poisons or drugs before they can enter school. And I look at my precious new little grandson, and in another 3 weeks, they want to shoot 16 different shots into him. And
you need to go into hypnosis.
Here's my question, because I know that that won't happen.
You need to tap into your own inner being.
I know that that won't happen for my grandbaby. I know that that won't happen for my grandbaby. I know that as much as I know anything, that that will not happen. My daughter and many of her friends, and this is what I heard you say, and I want to make sure I heard it correctly, that her friends who are worried about that, her friends who have a 5-year-old who they didn't immunize and who are saying, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? They have to go to public school. I can't homeschool them. That their vibration may have to be that their child is immunized. I know that my daughter and my vibration is that our grandson, her son, will not be immunized. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, there's so much to this conversation, isn't there? Because it's not just about the action. Nothing is ever about the action. Nothing is ever only about, do I do the immunization or do I not do it? It's not only ever about that. And your 25 years of what you've been teaching tells you that.
Yes.
It's about what you do before that. What vibrational state are you in? Which receiving mode are you in? Are you in the defiant receiving mode? Are you in the hopeful receiving mode?
Knowing receiving mode, that that's not going to happen.
But the knowing receiving mode is never going to tell you what's not going to happen.
Good point.
The knowing receiving mode never pushes against anything, because in the pushing against, let's start in another place. There is nothing more detrimental for anyone to do than something that they believe is not good. So if you've come to the place, never mind what anybody else believes, and never mind what the state of California believes, never mind what anybody else believes. What happens to you is this gap or not gap, large gap, small gap, no gap between what you are thinking about something right now and what your inner being is thinking about something right now. So there are so many things that people come to feel very guarded about, and they feel that their guidance is telling them, don't go there, don't do that, don't participate in that, because their guidance is all spiked up. But there's a bigger thing to realize that is going on here than that subject, than the specifics of that subject or the action of that subject. It's that what you're thinking right now about that and what your inner being is thinking right now about that are different things. You're not going to want to hear this, but you know it. There is more detrimental things happening to people because of the split in their vibration than there is because of any behavior. It's not what you're doing or not doing, it's how you feel about doing it or not doing it. And so in the same way that we were talking this morning, you want to be called in the direction of something, not defiantly pushing against something, or you're not going to be in vibrational alignment, and it doesn't matter what you've done with the immunization or without the immunization. That is a far lesser reaction to your physical experience.
Got it.
Do you trust in the resiliency of your physical body?
Yes.
Do you trust in the adaptability of your physical body?
Yes.
Do you trust in the vibrational alignment of the source within you and in the source within your little grandbaby?
100%.
unequivocally, then if that's the case, then the immunization or not would not ruffle your feathers like it is. But the reason your feathers are so ruffled is because you, like the clients who you serve so well, and you do, have dragged forward into your now beliefs that are in the way of your well-being. Oh, socialization is such a problem to alignment. Because socialization says, like the state of California apparently is saying to all of you, you have no choice in this. You have no choice in this. And yet you say, well, there are choices. In other words, first of all, it's quite a long time between now and the time school starts. Next, all kinds of things are happening in the school system. Next, you have no idea if you'll be ready to homeschool. And so to get all twirled up right now and use this new birth into physical expression as your reason to take a stand against something, your inner being is not taking a stand. That's why your stand is so painful to you. You see?
I get it.
And so rather than trying to sort out the rightness and the wrongness in everything, let's just talk for a little while, maybe for about 5 years, about alignment and what it feels like, and about not alignment and what it feels like, about the receiving mode from all of the activists that are pushing against everything. There's a war against everything, so many things. There was a war against cancer, and a war against drugs, and a war against teenage pregnancy, and a war against terrorism, and a war against AIDS, and all of them are getting more. All of them are getting more, because you cannot push against anything without it becoming more. Not just more in the sense of mass consciousness, but more in your attraction power, more in your seeing more of it, more of you bumping up against it, more. So did you come into this experience with a live and let live attitude? Or did you come into this experience with a, I'll keep an eye on what you're doing, and if I see you doing something wrong, I will fight against you? That is not going to happen to my grandchild.
That's not me. No.
That isn't you. That is not you. And yet it's how you feel about this.
So I was able to call my daughter yesterday, and I told her that I was going to, this is a very passionate issue for her.
Call it passionate if you want.
And for me, right, I hear you. For me, I know 5 years is a long time. I know tomorrow. I know that for me, I am in the place of this is not going to happen.
Well, so let's talk about immunization. Let's talk about contrast. Let's talk about knowing what you don't want, which causes you to send a rocket about what you do want. That's immunization. You know what you don't want, causes greater clarity about what you do want. And so there it is in the vortex, attracting. And so vaccinations at their simplest understanding is the introduction of something into your anatomy that your body now is going to respond to in hopefully a favorable way. We'll just introduce a little bit of something because your body might bump up against it.
Right.
And so before your body bumps up against it, then introduce something to it and give your body a chance to respond to it. So that in and of itself, in its simplest of form, has been beneficial. In fact, those immunizations were inspired from people fighting plagues, from people experiencing great destruction, of hundreds of thousands of millions of people dying. In other words, a lot of history and life experiences caused that to be something that was received by someone. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're scientists and you're doctors, and we're not advocating one way or the other. We're just explaining what we know about the law of attraction and about how it always works and the consistency of it. So then, in an attempt to stabilize these vaccines, more and more is introduced to them to make them stable. Is that right? And your fight is with so much of what's been added to it for the purpose of stabilizing it. And the common theory is that there is so much negative response to them that it must be that the stabilizing agents aren't as stable as we want them to be. But nobody's considering the war against immunization. Nobody's considering that some of the upheaval could be a vibrational upheaval from doing something that you don't believe you should be doing. You see what we're getting at? Or a rebelliousness about being forced to do something that you don't want to do. We think there's a whole other conversation to have around this that doesn't have much to do with the medicine that they're wanting to inject. We think there's a whole conversation about vibration and about your response to it, because you know as you've watched one another over long periods of time that the same medicine doesn't have the same effect on everyone. Everybody doesn't have the same side effects. If it were the way that everyone wants it to be, well, here this has happened, so let's have some of this and we will get this response. Medicine and life in medicine would be a lot simpler, isn't it? But there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on vibrationally that are the real reason that people are where they are to begin with, or responding to whatever they are to begin with. And so having a conversation only about the medicine is so scanty.
It's about
And
choice.
it's not the work you've been doing for 25 years. You haven't asked anybody if they've been immunized.
No.
You're not asking any of them what kind of medicine they've been taking and then trying to apply all of that to the state that they're in. You're doing vibrational work, emotional work, alignment work, and all of the work is that kind of work, you see. And then you'll know what to do. You could even be someone who focuses so clearly vibrationally that scientists and doctors and inventors are inspired. Do you know what kind of breakthroughs could happen in 5 years relative to everything? But if you join the masses in fighting those who are even looking for solutions, you don't help them.
So my daughter said, when I talked to her yesterday, she said, "Mommy, I hope you get in the hot seat and tell Daddy to record it so I can hear it." So this is
really good is what this is. It's really good. Full of nuggets. Yeah, really good.